the heart as a quantum generator, how emotions activate new reality, the field of infinite possibilities. Imagine for a moment that your heart is not just a pump circulating blood. It's a powerful electromagnetic generator creating a field that extends several meters around your body. Modern science confirms the heart's electromagnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than the brain's field. And it is this field that serves as a bridge between your inner state and the quantum field of all possibilities. When emotion meets intention, most people live in survival mode. They wake up in the morning and start thinking about their problems. Each familiar thought leads to a familiar emotion, and each familiar emotion triggers habitual thoughts. It's a closed loop that creates the same reality again and again. But what happens when you combine clear intention with elevated emotion? You send a completely new signal to the universe. Your heart begins to generate a coherent pattern, an ordered wave of energy that literally reorganizes the quantum field around you. The biology of transformation. When you live in chronic stress, your body exists in a state of imbalance. Stress hormones narrow your attention, focusing you on matter, on your body, on things, on people, on time. You become someone in some place at some time. You define yourself through the external world. But in the moment of true transformation, something changes. When you enter a state of deep gratitude, love, or inspiration, before anything has happened in your external reality, your body doesn't know the difference between a real experience and one you create through the power of thought. It begins producing chemicals corresponding to this future event right now. Quantum leap of consciousness. In a quantum model of reality, an electron exists simultaneously in multiple places and states until you begin observing it. The act of observation collapses the wave function, transforming potentiality into reality. The same thing happens with your life. There are infinite possible futures in the quantum field. When you connect clear vision, thought, with intense feeling, emotion, you become the observer collapsing a specific potentiality into your three-dimensional reality. Practicing new reality. Here's what happens when you practice this science of transformation. You sit in meditation not to become a better version of your old self. You do it to go beyond yourself, beyond your body, environment, and time. In this moment, you are pure consciousness observing from the quantum field. Now you begin to feel the emotions of your desired future, not thinking about them, feeling them. Gratitude for what hasn't happened yet. Love for the life you're not yet living. Freedom from limitations that still exist in your current reality. Your heart begins beating in a new rhythm. It generates a coherent wave that informs every cell of your body. Your DNA receives new signals. Neural networks in the brain rewire. You literally become a different person. Epigenetics of freedom. The most amazing discovery of modern epigenetics. Genes don't create disease. The environment activates or deactivates genes. And what is the most immediate environment for your genes? The chemicals produced by your emotions. When you change your emotional state, you change the signals going to your genes. Genes associated with disease can be turned off. Genes associated with health and vitality can be activated. You're not a victim of your biology. You're its creator. Synchronicity as feedback. When your inner state begins to change, the external world responds. Coincidences appear. The right people come into your life. Opportunities materialize out of nowhere. This isn't magic. It's coherence between your electromagnetic field and the field of quantum reality. The universe always organizes itself around your state of being, not around your desires, hopes, or prayers, around who you are at the energetic level, beyond survival. True transformation begins when you stop waiting for something to change in your external reality to start feeling different. That's the usual formula. Wait for change, feel emotion change internally. The quantum formula is reversed. Change internally, feel new emotion, create new reality. When you live in elevated emotions regardless of external circumstances, you send a new signal into the field, and the field must respond. This isn't philosophy, it's physics. The heart knows the way. Your heart possesses its own intelligence. It contains over 40,000 neurons, a true heart brain that constantly communicates with the brain in your head. When the heart is in a state of coherence, when the rhythm is ordered and harmonious, it sends signals that synchronize your entire physiology. In this state, your intuition sharpens. Your perception expands. You begin to know things you can't explain logically, because you're accessing information not from past experience, but from the field of infinite intelligence. Become no one to become everything. The paradox of transformation is that you need to let go of your identity to create a new one. When you meditate, you're not strengthening yourself, you're dissolving it. You become pure consciousness, a wave of possibilities not yet collapsed into a specific form. From this state of boundlessness, you can choose who to become, not based on the past, but on the future you want to create. Your heart already knows this truth. It already vibrates at the frequency of your greatest potential. The only question is, are you ready to tune into this frequency and allow the old version of yourself to die so that a new reality can be born? The quantum field awaits your signal. What will you choose to broadcast today? Every morning you wake up and become the same person you went to bed as yesterday. You open your eyes and immediately begin remembering. Remembering your problems, your obligations, your people, your places. And in this moment, you become a prisoner of the known again. You recreate yourself from memory. But what if you could wake up and not remember? Not automatically return to the old version of yourself? What if you use the first moments after waking not to become the familiar I, but to enter a state of pure potentiality? Most people live their day on autopilot. They perform the same actions, think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions. By 8 o'clock in the evening, they've again become a programmed set of automatic reactions. This isn't life, it's repetition of memories. Neuroscience shows us something striking. Every time you repeat a thought, you strengthen a neural connection. Every time you live through a familiar emotion, you train your body to be the mind of that emotion. Your body literally becomes a living memory of the past. Now imagine you begin a new practice. Every morning, before getting out of bed, you ask yourself, what person do I want to be today? Not what I want to do, not what I want to achieve, but who I want to be. And instead of analyzing this question mentally, you begin to feel the answer in your body. How does this version of me feel? What energy does it radiate? How does this person's heart beat? How do they breathe? How do they move through space? When you live through this version of yourself intensely enough, your body begins to believe it's already happened. It doesn't know the difference between a real experience and one you create through the power of intention and feeling. Cells receive new instructions. Hormonal centers activate differently. Your entire biology begins to reorganize. Most people wait for the external world to give them a reason to feel happy, inspired, grateful. They say, When I have more money, then I'll feel secure. When I meet that person, then I'll feel love. When my body heals, then I'll feel joy. But this is the formula for creating the past and the future. You wait for an external event to change your internal state. And while you wait, you radiate a vibration of lack, incompleteness, dependence. And the quantum field always responds to your vibration, not your words or desires. True alchemy happens when you flip this formula, when you begin feeling gratitude before something has happened, when you live through love before meeting the person, when you sense abundance before money appears in your account. In this moment, you stop being a victim of reality and become its creator. You're no longer waiting for life to change you. You change yourself, and life cannot help but respond. You know why this works? Because in the quantum field, there is no past and future. There's only the eternal present where all possibilities exist simultaneously. When you live through the emotion of the future in the present moment, you collapse precisely that timeline on which this future is real. Your body doesn't understand the difference between an experience that creates chemistry and chemistry created by your internal state. If you can make your body believe that the desired future is happening right now, you literally become a magnet for that future. But here's the catch. You can't just visualize the desired while continuing to radiate old emotions. You can't think about abundance while simultaneously feeling fear of lack. Energy follows attention, but matter follows energy. If your emotional state doesn't match your vision, you continue creating from the past. This is why meditation isn't just relaxation. It's retraining. You're literally teaching your body a new emotional state. You're canceling old programs and installing new ones. Every time you enter an elevated emotion in meditation, you send a new signal into the field. And each time, the field begins reorganizing around this new signal. Imagine your nervous system is an antenna. Most of the time, this antenna is tuned to the frequency of survival. Fear, anger, sadness, shame, these are all low-frequency emotions that keep you in a state of contraction. In this state, you can't access high-frequency information from the field. But when you switch to frequencies of love, gratitude, joy, inspiration, your antenna tunes to a completely different range. Suddenly, you begin receiving information that was always there, but you couldn't pick it up. Ideas come from nowhere. Solutions become obvious. Synchronicities multiply. This isn't coincidence. It's coherence between your internal state and the organizing principle of the universe. Every cell in your body listens to every thought you think and every emotion you feel. Your consciousness constantly communicates with your biology. When you live in chronic stress, you literally program genes to create disease. When you live in elevated states, you activate genes of health, youth, vitality. You're not doomed to genetic fate. Your DNA isn't a sentence. It's a library of possibilities. And you choose which books to open with every emotional state. People constantly ask, how long does it take to change my life? But that's the wrong question. The right question is, how long can I stay in a new state of being? Because change doesn't happen with time. It happens in the moment when you become a different person at the energetic level. You can meditate for 20 years and nothing will change if you get up from the cushion and return to the old I. Or you can change in 1 hour of deep practice if you truly let go of the past and fully embody the new state. Time is an illusion of consciousness tied to matter. When you go beyond your body, beyond environment, beyond time, You enter the eternal present where all changes have already occurred. You just need to choose which version of reality you collapse into the three-dimensional world. The problem is that most people are so addicted to their emotions that they can't change their state without an external trigger. They wait for bad news to feel anxious. They wait for conflict to feel anger. They wait for loss to feel sadness. This means the external world controls their internal state. They become victims of circumstances. And as long as they remain in this paradigm, they'll continue creating the same reality because their internal state hasn't changed. True freedom begins when you can change your emotional state regardless of external circumstances. When you can feel joy even if nothing joyful has happened. When you can sense love even if there's no object of love around. When you can be at peace even if the world around you is in chaos. This doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending problems don't exist. It means stopping giving the external world power to define who you are. Your body is the unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between an experience in your life that creates an emotion and an emotion you create with thought. It simply reacts to the chemical signal. If you live through stress, your body produces cortisol. It doesn't matter if something stressful is actually happening or you're just thinking about it. This means two things. Bad news. You can destroy your health just with thoughts about the past or worry about the future. Good news. You can heal your body, activate your DNA, and create new biology through the power of intention and elevated emotion. When you sit in meditation and begin feeling deep gratitude, not for something specific, but simply as a state of being, your heart enters coherence. It begins sending a completely new signal to the brain. The prefrontal cortex activates. The amygdala, the center of fear and survival, calms down. In this state, you're literally creating new neural networks. Old pathways that led you to the same thoughts, emotions, and behaviors begin breaking down. New pathways corresponding to your new I begin forming. But here's the thing. If you want these new neural networks to become automatic, you need to repeat the practice. Not once, not when it's convenient. Every day, with the same discipline with which you brush your teeth. Because your old I won't surrender without a fight. It will give you 1,000 reasons to skip meditation. It will tell you it's not working. It will tempt you to return to the familiar, even if the familiar brings suffering. This is the voice of your body addicted to old emotions. This is the voice of neural networks that don't want to die. This is the voice of the survival program that fears the unknown. And in this moment, everything is decided. Will you yield to this voice and return to the old self? Or will you pass through the discomfort of the unknown to be born anew? You see, true transformation always passes through crisis. Because between who you were and who you're becoming, there's a void. The river of oblivion. A moment when the old I dies and the new hasn't yet been born. And in this moment, you have nothing to define yourself with. This can be frightening. Your mind will panic. It will scream, "Who am I? What am I doing?" Go back to what's familiar. Because the mind defines itself through the known. When you enter the unknown, the mind loses control. But this is exactly where magic happens. In this void, in this gap between old and new, lives the quantum field of all possibilities. Here you are pure consciousness, not yet having taken form. And from this place, you can create anything. The great mystics of all traditions spoke of this state. They called it different things: emptiness, non-being, dark night of the soul, death of the ego. But they all described the same process, letting go of the known to enter the unknown. In modern terms, We can say you're breaking old neural connections and old emotional patterns to create space for new ones. You're deconstructing the old version of yourself at the quantum level to reconstruct a new one. And the most important thing to understand, you can't take anything from the old life into the new. Not old beliefs, not old relationships with yourself, not old stories about who you are and what's possible for you. You must die to the past, completely, not partially, not I'll change a little here and a little there. Complete transformation requires complete death of the old. It sounds dramatic, but in practice, it can be very simple. Every morning you wake up and make a choice. Return to the familiar, I, or create a new self from pure consciousness. Every meditation you make a choice. Live through old emotions or generate new ones. Small choices. Every day, again and again, until the new becomes so familiar that you forget what you once were. Your body remembers the new state. Your brain remembers new thoughts. Your energy begins vibrating at a new frequency. And suddenly you wake up one morning and realize, I'm no longer the person I was. I've become someone completely different. And when this happens, you look back and see that your external life has also changed. Not because you struggled or pushed, but because you became a different person. And a different person naturally lives in a different reality. This isn't a metaphor. This is literal physics. When you change your electromagnetic field, you change how particles organize around you. You become a different antenna tuned to a different frequency of reality. Think about it this way. Right now in the room where you are, thousands of radio waves, Wi-Fi signals, frequencies exist. They're all here simultaneously, passing through you. But you don't perceive them because your receiver isn't tuned to these frequencies. It's the same with reality. There are infinite possible realities happening right now in the same space. A version of reality where you're healthy. A version where you're abundant. A version where you're doing what you love with people you love. All these versions exist as potentialities in the quantum field. The only question is, what frequency are you tuned to? And your frequency is determined by your state of being, the combination of your thoughts and feelings. Most people are tuned to the frequency of their past. Every morning, they think the same thoughts they thought yesterday. They feel the same emotions. They perform the same actions. They meet the same people, go to the same places, do the same things. And they wonder why their life doesn't change. But how can it change if you're radiating the same frequency? The quantum field doesn't react to what you want. It doesn't hear your prayers, your hopes, your dreams. It only reacts to who you are energetically, to your vibration, to the signal you're constantly broadcasting. You can say as much as you want, I want to be healthy. But if every day you live through the emotions of a sick person, worry, fear, helplessness, you continue tuning to the frequency of illness. You can repeat affirmations about abundance, but if your body is chemically addicted to the feeling of lack, if you check your bank account every day with a feeling of fear, if you experience envy at the sight of someone else's success, you're radiating the frequency of poverty. This isn't positive thinking work. Positive thinking is an attempt to paste a smile on the old I. This isn't transformation. It's cosmetics. True transformation happens at the level of being. When you don't just think different thoughts, but become a different person. When what changes isn't what you tell yourself, but how you feel at the cellular level. This is why practice is so important. Not theory, not understanding, not accumulating knowledge. Practice. Daily, consistent, disciplined embodiment of a new state of being. Every time you sit in meditation and live through the emotion of your future, you create new neurochemistry. Your body begins remembering this state. At first, it requires effort. You need to consciously generate this emotion. But over time, with repetition, it becomes automatic. A moment comes when you no longer need to try to feel gratitude. You're simply grateful. You don't need to force yourself to feel joy. You're simply joyful. It becomes your baseline state, your default setting. And when this happens, you no longer create your reality through effort. You're not trying to manifest, visualize, attract. You simply are who you are, and reality organizes around this. People look at you and say, "You're lucky." They don't understand that what they call luck is simply coherence between your internal state and external events. You're not attracting luck. You're radiating the frequency on which what you call luck lives. It's like tuning a radio to a station where beautiful music plays. You didn't create this music. It already existed. You simply tuned to the right frequency. The problem for most people is that they want to change the station but don't want to change the frequency. They want a different life but don't want to become a different person. They want a miracle but don't want to go through transformation. But the universe doesn't work that way. You can't vibrate at one frequency and receive results from another. That would violate the laws of physics. If you want to live on the frequency of love, you must become love. If you want to live on the frequency of abundance, you must become abundance. If you want to live on the frequency of health, you must become health. Not have these things, be them. There's a huge difference between I want to be healthy and I am health. The first is a desire coming from lack. The second is a state of being coming from wholeness. When you say I want, you confirm that you don't have it. You send a signal of absence. And the quantum field gives you more absence because that's your vibration. When you say, I am, you make a statement about the present moment. You're not waiting for the future. You're collapsing the future into now. And this changes everything. Your body hears, I am health, and begins producing the chemistry of a healthy person. Your genes hear this signal and begin expressing differently. Your immune system activates. Your cells regenerate. This isn't imagination. This isn't visualization. This is an instruction you're giving to your biology. But again, you can't just say the words. You must feel them. You must embody them so fully that your body believes it's true right now. This requires practice because your body is used to old emotions. It's addicted to them. When you try to feel something new, it resists. It says, this isn't real. This isn't who you are. And in this moment, most people give up. They say, see, I can't feel this. It doesn't work for me. But they don't understand that this is precisely the moment of transformation. This is the moment when the old I fights for survival. If you pass through this resistance, if you continue generating the new emotion despite your body not wanting it, you break the old pattern. You release energy stuck in the past. You create space for the new. This isn't always pleasant. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes old emotions, old memories, old pains rise up. This is normal. It's a cleansing process. It's energy that must be released so you can move forward. Don't run from it. Don't suppress it. Simply observe. Allow it to pass through you. Recognize that this isn't you. It's old energy leaving your system. And when it's gone, you become lighter, freer, more alive. Each time you pass through this resistance, you become stronger. Not physically stronger, energetically stronger. You develop what can be called quantum will, the ability to hold the vision and emotion of your future despite the external world not yet having changed. This is real power, not power over others, not the ability to control circumstances, but the ability not to allow circumstances to control you. the ability to remain in a chosen state of being regardless of what's happening around you. Most people are emotionally reactive. Something happens, and they automatically react with a certain emotion. Someone criticizes them. They feel anger or resentment. They see a bill. They feel anxiety. They watch the news. They feel fear. They've given power over their internal state to the external world. And the external world gladly takes this power. It will pull your emotional strings again and again as long as you allow it. But when you begin practicing daily creation of your state, when you consciously choose every morning who to be today, something changes. You begin noticing a gap between stimulus and reaction. Someone says something provocative, and instead of automatic anger, you feel a pause, space, a moment of choice. And in this space, you could decide, I don't want to give my energy to this. I choose to remain in my state. This isn't suppression of emotion. This isn't pretending you weren't affected. It's a deeper understanding of who you are. You no longer identify with reactive emotions. You're the one who observes these emotions, the one who chooses which emotion to cultivate. And the more you practice this, the more this space between stimulus and reaction expands. Things that used to throw you off balance for hours or days now barely touch you. Not because you're insensitive, but because you're rooted in a deeper state. You begin understanding a profound truth. Nothing external has power over you unless you give it that power. Events are neutral. It's your interpretation, your reaction that gives them meaning and emotional charge. Two people can experience the same event and have completely different reactions. One sees a problem, another an opportunity. One feels fear, another excitement. The difference isn't in the event. The difference is in who they are. When you live in a state of elevated emotions, your entire perspective changes. You look at the same situations, but see them differently. Problems that seemed insurmountable become simply tasks to solve. People who irritated you become teachers, showing you where you're not yet free. All of life becomes feedback, a mirror showing you your internal state. If you constantly encounter conflicts, ask yourself, what conflict am I carrying inside? If you constantly meet lack, ask yourself, where do I feel lack within myself? The external world is always a projection of the internal. Always. Without exception. This can be an uncomfortable truth because it means you can't blame anyone or anything for your life. Not parents, not a partner, not the economy, not the government, not the past. You are the creator of your experience. But this is also an incredibly liberating truth. Because if you're the creator, it means you can change the creation. You don't need to wait for the world to change. You only need to change yourself. And when you truly change, not superficially but at the level of being, the world cannot remain the same. It must change in response. Because the world always corresponds to your vibration. This isn't magical thinking. This is quantum mechanics. The observer influences the observed. Your consciousness collapses the wave function. You're not separate from the world you perceive. You're an active participant in its creation. Every second you're collapsing one of infinite possibilities into your experience. Usually you do this unconsciously, out of habit, based on the past. But you can learn to do it consciously, intentionally, based on the future you want to create. This is true evolution of consciousness. The transition from unconscious creation to conscious. From reactivity to creativity. From victim of circumstances to creator of reality. But let's be honest. This isn't an easy path, not because the techniques are complex, they're actually simple. but because it requires incredible discipline and consistency to again and again choose the unknown over the known. Your old I will tempt you to return in 1,000 ways. It will tell you you're too busy for meditation, that the practice isn't working fast enough, that you're not good enough, that it works for others but not for you. These are lies. This is the voice of the survival program that fears death. Because if you truly change, the old I will die. And part of you knows this and resists with all its might. You must be ready to lose everything you defined yourself by. Your stories, your excuses, your right to be a victim, your addiction to drama, your comfort of the known, even if the known brings suffering. This is the price of transformation, and not everyone is ready to pay it. Many prefer to stay in familiar misery than risk entering unknown happiness. But if you're reading this and something inside you resonates, if some part of you recognizes this truth, it means you're ready. It means something in you has already begun awakening. And all you need to do is begin. Not tomorrow, not when circumstances are perfect, not when you feel ready, because you'll never feel ready to start being who you've never been. You simply begin. Today, now, you close your eyes, you calm the body, you go beyond your senses and environment, and you begin feeling the emotion of your future. Maybe at first it will seem unnatural. Maybe you'll feel resistance. Maybe your mind will tell you it's silly. Keep going, because every time you do this, you send a new signal into the field. Every time you create a new neural connection. Every time your body remembers the new state a little more. And one day, maybe in a week, maybe in a month, maybe in a year, you'll wake up and feel different. Not because something external changed, but because you changed. And in this moment, you'll understand the deepest truth. You never needed to search for anything outside. Everything you were seeking, love, abundance, health, freedom, meaning, was always inside you. Not as a concept, not as an idea, but as a living frequency waiting for you to tune into it. You spent years trying to change your life, not understanding that life isn't what happens to you. It's what happens through you. You're not a passenger on this journey. You're the vehicle. You're the channel. You're the point through which infinite consciousness experiences itself in form. And when you realize this, truly realize it, not intellectually, but with every cell of your body, everything changes. The question is no longer, how do I get what I want? The question becomes, who must I become to be the living expression of what I seek? Because you can't attract love while being filled with fear. You can't create abundance from a vibration of lack. You can't heal the body while remaining in the mental state of disease. You must first become what you want to experience. This is the whole formula. This is the whole secret. Become it first, not after it happens. Not when circumstances change. Now, in this very moment, in the silence of your meditation, in the space between thoughts, in the depth of your heart, and when you truly become it, when gratitude flows through you without reason, when love radiates from you regardless of object, when joy becomes your nature rather than a reaction, then the quantum field cannot help but respond. Then synchronicities become the norm. The right people appear at the right time. Doors open where there were once walls. Solutions come from silence. Healings occur without explanation. Life begins flowing with such ease that you don't even recognize it. But the most amazing thing isn't the external changes. The most amazing thing is that you no longer need them to be whole. You're already whole. You're already free. You're already everything you wanted to become. And from this place of wholeness, you create not from lack, but from overflow. Not because you're missing something, but because you're so full you can't help but share. Can't help but create. Can't help but express the greatness of who you've become. This is the journey from a person seeking themselves in the world to a person expressing themselves as the world. From separation to unity. From lack to abundance. From fear to love. And it all begins with one choice. The choice in this very moment to stop waiting for life to give you permission to be who you want to be. The choice to close your eyes and feel it now. The choice to die to the past and be born anew in the present moment. Because the truth is, you don't need more knowledge. You don't need more techniques. You don't need more teachers. You only need one thing: the willingness to become unknown to yourself. The willingness to let go of everything you thought about who you are and allow something completely new to arise. And when you do this, when you truly let go, you discover that what arises isn't new at all. It's who you've always been, beneath all the layers of conditioning, beneath all the stories, beneath all the programming. This is your true self, pure consciousness, limitless possibility, the quantum field of itself looking at itself through your eyes. And in this recognition, the whole journey ends where it began, in the silence of your own heart, in the space between beats, in the field that was always here, waiting for you to remember who you really are. You're not a drop in the ocean. You're the ocean in a drop. You're not a wave seeking water. You're the water itself playing at waves. You're not a seeker of truth. Your truth seeking itself through the illusion of separation. And now the search is over. Not because you found the answer, but because you finally understood. You've always been the answer to the question that never needed to be asked. Welcome home, to the quantum field of your own infinite potential, to the only place you never needed to leave. Here, in the silence of your heart, all reality has always been pulsing, waiting for you to tune into its frequency. And now you're tuned in. Now you're alive. Now you're free. Be that retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double check responses.